Welcome, everyone. I'm Amy Seeley, president of Seeley Test Pros and LEAP, helping students to succeed in all kinds of tests from 8th grade to grad school throughout Ohio.
And I'm Mike Bergen, president of Chariot Learning, helping students with tests, school, and life based out of Rochester, New York.
Between the two of us today, we have over 60 years of experience at the highest levels of the test preparation and supplemental education industries.
We both love to talk and learn about the latest issues in education, testing, and admissions. So let's get down to tests and the rest. The fascinating topic we want to explore today is how colleges use AI in admissions. But first, let's meet our special guest, Ashish Fernando.
Ashish Fernando is the founder and CEO of Edmo, an AI-powered education technology company that provides enrollment solutions to higher education institutions. Ashish has built intelligent tools that automate document evaluation, streamline enrollment workflows, and enhance student engagement. Growing up in an education-focused family inspired his mission to make global admissions more accessible, transparent, and efficient. A member of the Forbes Technology Council and a frequent higher ed speaker, Ashish also hosts the Edu Unlocked podcast, where he brings together leaders driving innovation in universities. His work reflects a simple philosophy: use AI to empower institutions and create better experiences for students worldwide. Welcome.
Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Mike. I'm going to steal that bio from you for myself. This is great.
I took what you gave me. I do refine them just a little bit for what it's worth, but awesome.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for the invite, and I'm excited to be on the podcast.
Fantastic. Well, it is great to have you on the podcast. Before we dive into a topic that I believe our audience is clamoring for, we'd love to hear more about your background in both education and technology and how you've married the two.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, a lot of people don't know this about me, Mike, but my grandfather started about 7 schools in India,
Wow.
Catholic schools. And so my siblings, my parents, and uncles and aunts, they all went to these schools that my grandfather started. And so education's been in my DNA for a long time. And as an Indian migrant student to the United States, technology is also in my DNA. You know, I thought, okay, I'll come to the US, you know, get my MBA, go work for an Amazon or an Apple or anything. But education was always a calling. Every time I went back, I'm not known in my city in India or a town actually as Ashish. I'm known as Ryan's grandson. That's the impact my grandfather created.
You had to leave the country to be able to escape the connection.
Yeah, exactly. No, and he then still keeps talking to me, right? It's like, so the calling was there, and that's how I kind of took all of my technology background that I had in machine learning, AI, working on some projects, and putting it together to say, what do I want to do for education? Started as a little YouTube video that I recorded on the Harvard campus, talking about my journey and to a debt-free education in the States and how I put it all together. I woke up the next morning and it had 500,000 views. In a week,
Wow.
it had 1 million views. Students asking me, Ashish, can you tell us what you did to actually, you know, set yourself up for success? And that soon blossomed into what we're doing today at scale with AI. And our goal is to basically make every student seamlessly connect and get enrolled at the institution of their choice with the most optimal financial arrangements for themselves and the most optimal potential career outcomes.
Yeah, college is so expensive anymore that, right, the financial part of it has to be a part of that consideration because tuition is not cheap, right?
It's not. It's actually becoming inversely proportional to ROI.
Yeah.
You know,
This is
as
true.
we move, the costs are going up and the ROI and the ability to find a job. And it's just becoming, it's a very interesting time we're living in with all the automation and everything. So, yeah.
It's always interesting in college admissions. It seems to get more interesting every year. The ROA conversation is one we have all the time, and we might put that on the list for another conversation. But what I want to talk about now is something that I know you're really passionate about. When I was on your podcast, which was a ton of fun, we were speaking so much about the way colleges are looking at students, looking at applicants and the different criteria, and the role that AI is playing in the admissions office. And that role, like, just seems from the outside to be changing, expanding every year because you know about these things. I think you're the
Yeah.
perfect person for us to ask, what does AI actually look like inside an admissions office today?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to give some insights based on whatever way you want to look at it. 7 years of failure or 7 years of, trying to figure out what's right, but learned a lot. Really fortunate to be working with quite a few institutions at this point, all the way from Ivy Leagues to online institutions, and learned quite a bit. So, I think when people talk to me, especially in higher ed, they see, okay, here's the guy who's doing AI. The immediate reaction seems to be, but it's working fine with the way it's working right now with human teams. Why should AI come and take our place? And I always tend to correct them and say, it's not how we look at the world. It's not how the schools that use our AI are looking at the world of, okay, let's replace our human staff with AI. It's almost like analogous to banking. Today, we do everything on the palm of our hands. We don't have to go to a teller. We used to do that to deposit money or to, collect cash. Today, we do it on our phones. We take a picture of our checks and it gets deposited, and it's awesome. Does that mean banks have lost all the people? No. So when I talk, and I want to talk more about it, but our goal is to make the human staff in the organization, at the institution, more efficient, give them information on their fingertips about every student, what they're looking for, right? Because now it's like, okay, every time they pick up the phone and they're talking to a student, they're like, oh, today I'm going to talk about, hey, financial aid or something. But with AI, we can make it specific. We know that, hey, this is a student who was somewhere hanging out on the FAFSA pages, and they're probably looking for a way to pay for tuition. Here's a student who was hanging out on, the faculty pages or the computer science, and talking to our AI about it, chatting about it. So can we talk to them about specifically a program? So we're just trying to make the process more efficient over time.
So, Ashish, I find it very telling that you used the bank and tellers example because that's, I think, the classic for trying to tell people don't worry. Just because technology takes over some of your functions doesn't mean that your role will be completely eliminated. It may change, but yes, banks have lots of tellers today, but there's plenty of examples of roles that actually have been obviated because of tech. It's understandable why some folks in the admissions office would be concerned, especially because admissions is so labor intensive. Clearly, it's
Yes.
crying out for efficiencies. And you mentioned the information, and this makes me think, Amy, of the conversations we've had with people about Slate and the other
That's exactly what I was thinking.
CRMs that colleges use, right? I mean, this is just enrollment management has been this really complex discipline that has been expanding over the last decade. And what I'm getting from what you're saying, Ashish, is that AI is just an extension of what colleges have already been doing to try to automate and aggregate information about applicants.
Yes, 100%. And I feel like it's not about losing jobs. It's about knowing what the reskilling should look like. Be it banking, be it commercial manufacturing. I mean, today cars are built by robots, but
Hmm.
there was a time when you had an entire production line full of humans putting screws in and everything. But today you have technicians. The same humans are now reskilled to build those robots and manage those, and that's the same with the admissions office especially. And the disconnect has always been, on one side, okay, how do we safeguard human jobs in the admissions office? On the other side, enrollment is dropping, so therefore our budgets are dropping, so we're going to have to let go of people. So where is that sweet balance anymore, right? So that's where, when you look at technologies like AI coming in that can make the enrollment process so efficient, that hopefully your enrollment yield goes up. We have some schools where the enrollment went up by 9% that's enough budget coming back to actually hire people and still be profitable enough to run as an office. And so it's just been interesting, the different dynamics. When I talk to operations teams, it's usually like, oh my God, you're going to take over all of our operations. When I talk to management, it's about, oh, so AI can help me actually save some money so I can retain my people and maybe even hire more. Like, it's very interesting conversation for me.
That is definitely kind of the tension everywhere
Yes.
in this era where everyone is worried, whether they're in management or they're labor, what does this portend for me?
Yes.
Let's talk more about the information part. You've mentioned that data silos are a problem in educational institutions. And so why are they a problem and what's being done about that?
Yeah, it's a great question. Let me take an example of where, the biggest friction lies in admission, okay, and how we're using AI to solve it. So one of the friction points is when I get a student document, especially a transcript, right? And a transcript can be from multiple institutions. It's coming in to my university. This is a student applying, and let's say they have 3 or 4 transcripts. I have to do 2 important things on it. One, I have to calculate GPA, and I have to see, what's the core GPA and all of those good things. And then I have to look at each course and see if there's a matching course, if there needs to be some transfer credit applied where the student can save some money and it's actually the right thing to do. All of that takes 2 things. One, it takes a lot of time for a human to go through each document. The second, it actually takes a lot of skill to be able to understand 4,500 other institutions in the country from where you might get a transcript and how it matches to a program on your side. So it's like, if you took Stat 101 at Harvard, it's not the same as taking Stat 101 at, let's say, an R3, right? And it will not get the same amount of credit.
This is
So,
very personal for me because my daughter is in the process of transferring schools, and I'm wondering the same
okay.
thing. How many of her credits are going to transfer?
which is a,
Yes, yeah.
which is a big
Um,
concern. Come back to the money, right? Like,
oh, absolutely. And there's a few articles already from Inside Higher Ed and some of the other publications where they state based on research that 42% students do not get the deserved credit that they should for a transfer, and that's an alarming number. And the biggest reason for that, is typically that kind of a challenge where you don't. It's so hard to do all that match when you have a machine and you feed it all of the course catalogs and the course descriptions and course codes of every institution in America, which is actually pretty much available on the NCES, like the iPads database and things like that. And we've done a lot of work around it for 7 years. A machine is close to precise, like almost 100% accurate on being able to say, hey, here's an institution from where this course is coming in. Here's the rigor of that institution, whether it's an R1, R2, R3, here's what the student's done. And therefore, I believe they should get so much transfer
So
credit
this
for
is
that.
where the admissions office and the registrar's office work together. They program that system so that that snap assessments can be made that will facilitate the transfer and make everything smooth as far as the registrar's office goes.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. The traditional way of doing that was every time you made a match from, let's say, an incoming institution in Utah to a school in Pennsylvania, you put a record somewhere, and it's called an articulation rule.
mm,
And years and years now I work with some large institutions on the East Coast that have 2.1 million articulation rules.
Right.
And now it's a
wow.
business logic. And every time there's a new one that's not part of the 2.1 million, you add another row to it,
And, and
and
that's exactly what you want to automate.
we automate it with AI.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We do that entire work with pinpoint precision in seconds. Yeah.
Well, I think what you're
Uh,
saying is there's so much that AI can do that is sort of non-discriminate. The data is the data, the information is the information, right? So I'm curious, in recent years, obviously, there's been litigation, about bias in admissions and prioritizing certain populations in admissions or whatever. So I'm curious, do you think that AI leads to less bias in admissions decisions or more?
That's a great, this is a great question, and I usually have one response to it, Amy, which is, think about flipping it for a second, right? If we think about AI, because everything is logged and you can actually see what it did, and you can pinpoint the bias. Imagine if you were to think of it as AI removing human bias.
Right, human bias, right? That's essentially what
Uh,
it is, right?
right, is we humans by design have bias, and we have been. So I'll give you an example without diverging too much. I'll spend a minute on it. My last company I sold to Turnitin, which did online proctoring.
We know
um,
Turnitin. Yeah,
right.
we've had
so
the
so
CEO
Yeah.
of Turnitin on
Yeah.
the show, and
on
I
the
mean,
show,
right?
yeah.
And that's like a very specific. So I'm glad you mentioned that, right? Because Turnitin is an entirely technology-driven uh, anti-plagiarism company, and so like they are on the academic integrity front
Integrity, yep.
lines.
Right.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. So part of academic integrity, other than plagiarism, was online proctoring for, when
Yes.
students are taking exams.
Absolutely.
So a lot of our tech, our AI was acquired by them that today works inside of that proctoring solution. And I remember this one moment where this was a clear example of how AI removed human bias. And we had this one test where the AI said, hey, there's a breach. We don't call it cheating. We don't want to use that harsh a term. So, right, it's a breach. And we're like, yeah, there's a breach on this exam. And all the humans who looked at it said, no, there is no
Oh,
breach. This is a perfect exam. The student's done everything. And we're going through the logs, and this was initial stages, so our logging wasn't perfect, and it was just kind of and we realize after hours of looking at why it says so confidently that there's a breach, whereas we don't see anything, no, not talking to anybody, no, AirPods in the ear. And what it did is it worked for the outcome, which is one of the outcomes is like if you have two screens, then you're breaching. You're not supposed to have a second screen. And the AI looked at the reflection on the student's glasses and saw four screens, which equals two in front, um, and made that decision. And it was actually right.
that's amazing. Yeah.
And so, just kind of fast forwarding to today is things like transfer credit, and, GPA calculations, conversions, essay grading, a lot of the things that we do. And most importantly, communicating with students using AI. Mike, you said your daughter's applying, and, it may not be out of the world to think, once you ask for some information or you send a note, that you might have to wait for a week or two. And it's not, I don't blame the schools. I mean, usually they're dealing with one advisor. The ratio is one advisor to 400 students. That's the ratio, and it's hard for them to know exactly what I need to talk to Mike's daughter about and what she exactly needs. And that's where we're augmenting some of that with AI, because now we'll be able to tell them, hey, we received this email from Mike's daughter, or we received this text message, and here it's ready. Can you just hit this button? I'm going to send this email, or I'm going to send her this message. The value of that some of our schools are seeing is actually now Mike's daughter saying, man, this institution's so responsive to me. They understand my questions. Every time I need something, it's there. When I submit a document, I get an instant response that we read your transcript and there's a potential that you might get some credit. The value of that is instant for the parent and the student as well, and therefore the institution.
So that's what you see as one of the main impacts of AI that should be building over time is the level of responsiveness with real information. Like they're not just going to say, we got your message and we'll get in touch with you in 24 hours. You'll ask a question that's very specific to your application and you'll receive the kind of information that can help you make a quick decision.
100%. Absolutely.
And
Because
it
you know,
feels
when you
personalized. When you say it that way, it feels personalized. So you feel like you're dealing with a human.
Yes,
right?
yes. And we will always caveat it and we'll say, well, there's disclaimers that will say this is AI, but so take this information accordingly. And but yeah, just the speed with which, get the information actually has been the biggest value for schools. So the scare, the reason I built the company is actually higher ed and all that is great, and thinking about the space. The reason I built the company and the two others that I built is because I love working with people. I wouldn't like coming to office and have a bunch of machines that are doing the work. There's no point. And so I do worry about like, how is this going to impact the human side of jobs and, business in general? And I'm always thinking about how do I keep the human in the loop, but without actually adding friction. So you still want humans to have those emotional conversations with students, with parents, to be able to look at documents and approve things and things of that nature, but without friction. So it's a delicate balance. I actually don't have an answer to it. I feel like we're like a search party. We're like we know the answer is somewhere hidden in a cave, and we're searching for it, but we'll find it.
I love that. It's an adventure, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that, since Mike and I started the podcast, pre-COVID, right, Mike, where there was like no such thing as AI that we really
Right.
ever talked about. But we knew that like colleges were struggling financially, right? We knew that like finances weren't there and that the colleges were going to be in trouble. I'm wondering, and obviously at that point it was for different kinds of reasons, but looking ahead, let's say like 5 or 10 years, I'm wondering, what do you think will separate the colleges that survive and thrive from the ones that are going to struggle or more likely close?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's a combination. I don't think it's just AI. I mean, I'm building AI. I'm very excited for where it's going to take humanity in the next 5 years. I mean, I'm sure y'all are using something between Claude and Gemini and ChatGPT, right? Like it's the value it provides is exceptional, and it's going to happen. What I think we will correct our course on is that the use of all these automation tools and AI is actually reducing our human ability to think. And I really firmly believe
Yes,
that it
I
does.
agree. I mean, it's not just you believe it. The research is coming out very strongly. This week, I read about how AI is leading to operational efficiencies, but the users are learning less and they have
Yes.
less. And so, right, there's a tension there that users, I think this is where you're going. Like, users need to learn how and when to use it. And if you just outsource all of your thinking to AI, you're not thinking anymore. This is exactly the
Well,
fear
like
that
anything,
is
to
taking
become
place in the classrooms where the professors are like, well, if AI wrote the paper, then maybe AI should get the degree
right,
Yeah.
because you
right.
get it.
But we know, like,
Yes.
to become better at anything, one has to do it, and thinking isn't any different. So if you're sort of outsourcing your thinking, you aren't getting the opportunity to become better at it, right? I mean, that's essentially what it comes down to. There's also this generational
Yes.
thing, though. Mike and I are of a certain age, and so we've had experience and learning that we bring to what we do. One of the things I had read before was about so we can look at things that AI produces and we can evaluate it and be critical about it because we have experience to put behind it. The issue is becoming students coming out of college who are using it that don't have the experience and are using it, and how do they get to the point we're at, because they have to go through should have to go through essentially the same learning that we've gone through. So there's like a gap here that I think
Yes.
is problematic for this generation of student coming out of school. That will be very interesting to see how it works itself out with, what is it, the alpha generation.
The yeah, yeah, exactly. And so I always constantly have this fight inside my head, and I'll talk to customers all the time who'll tell me, "Hey, Ashish, it feels like the student experience is dropping right after enrollment, because till enrollment they have this kind of frictionless, like, okay, AI is doing a lot of the work, and then they enroll, and then it's now very manual." And I'm like, but I think it should be that way. There's companies that are working on AI tutors and AI everything in the classroom. The reason I don't do that is because I believe that piece is what will take out the whole ability of us to like think and, process complex questions. If you have an AI tutor and everything's AI in the classroom, like I fear that, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. And you know what? That's such a powerful note to end on. That concern that even, you as a professional deeply embedded, you want to preserve the human in education. And that's, I think, what everybody wants. When you think about how colleges use AI in admissions, shouldn't replace people. It should enhance, it should inform, it should lead to greater certainty, make better matches. But, right, people are still like education is a very human endeavor.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, what's the point in living where everything you do and everywhere you go is just like machines running everything for you? Like, I mean, yeah, it's so I 100% agree with you, Mike. And yeah, and I think that's a great note for us to end. I'm sure when we do this podcast again in 2 years, we're going to reflect back on this and be like, oh, okay, yeah, this is what we thought, and here's where we are. So I'm actually, I am confident, though, about our ability as humans, especially in higher ed, to ensure that it doesn't go the route that some other industries have, and we preserve that human touch.
It's going
in
to
higher
be
ed.
exciting to follow along. All right. As much as we'd love to keep this conversation going, of course, we are out of time. Thanks so much, Ashish.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Amy, and thank you, Mike, for having me on the podcast.
If listeners would like to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
The best way is to go to our website, look at what we're doing. There's really some great videos of how we're working with customers. And the best way to contact us would be go to our URL, goedmo, that's goedmo.com/contact.
Awesome. We hope you enjoyed this discussion as much as we did. Be sure to join us for another fascinating topic and guest on the next Tests and the Rest.
Did you enjoy this episode as much as we did? Find expanded links and more for this and all of our episodes at our show page at testsandtherest.com. While you're there, be sure to explore everything the larger TestBright site has to offer, including real, expert, unbiased answers to the toughest admissions testing questions. Of course, we'd love for you to rate, review, and subscribe to Tests and the Rest on your favorite podcast platform. If there's a topic or guest you'd like us to feature, just let us know and spread the word.